Hey everyone, this is Professor Hammond, and I just want to take a few minutes to walk through the study guide, the revised study guide for next Tuesday's exam. Just from a formatting perspective, the first part will be Scantron. There'll be a series of true and false questions. Those will be 1 point each. Some multiple choice questions for 2 points each, and then some short answer questions. That will be a variety of points based on the question. So I did go through and revise this. As we go down, you'll see that there are some things that I just crossed out, so you know those are the things we just didn't make it to, and that won't be on the exam. All right, chapter 1. What I'll do is just briefly walk through and say these are the things to pay attention to. You will need to know the definition of a manager, so go back and be clear on what that definition is, what you guys defined it as, but mainly what we kind of decided was the definition for it. Also be familiar what a manager's resources are and be able, from examples, be able to identify what types of resources maybe that manager is using. So if they're looking at the schedule and trying to figure out what people they need to fill a shift, that would be their human resources, for example. So make sure you take a look at that. We talked about in class about the difference between being efficient and being effective. You will need to know the difference. Being effective is doing things right versus being efficient, doing those things perhaps more quickly. So definitely look back at your notes, being able to identify the two. The management functions, these were the big four of what a manager spends their time doing. This was something that I reviewed in the last video I posted, so you can go back and take a look at that. It was also discussed in the theory presentations under Henry Fayol, a little bit more expanded because he had 5 and we just have 4. But just thinking through that these are the big buckets of things that managers do and spend their time doing. This connects to the levels of managers. So that CEO level that focuses more on the planning side is the top. And then we have middle managers that are responsible for everything. And then that frontline manager, which is going to be more responsible for controlling and doing that leading piece as well. You will be asked to do a situational management analysis, just like the exercise we did in class and the exercise that you turned in, being able to take a situation and to identify what their capability is and then the appropriate management style. There will also be questions about what capability is composed of, that ability piece, and then also that motivation. So look back at those components. And you will also be asked to identify these different management styles in perhaps a multiple choice question. If I said, using this management style, you would involve your employees in making decisions, well, maybe that would be then participative. So make sure you know the definitions of these, and those should be in your notes. They're also in the textbook. Definition of theory, that should be in there as well. Looking back at what that is, it's the ways that we explain and predict and control behavior. So be familiar with that. And then this whole piece, this classical administrative behavioral integrated perspective, these were the PowerPoints and the presentations that you guys created in class. So all those are posted on Moodle. So it would really serve you well to not only review what's in the textbook, but also go back to those presentations, because that's the information that that these will be pulled from. So classical theory pulls from that class. We had a classical theory presentation thinking about, it was very top down. Employees weren't allowed to really communicate with each other, let alone supervisors. They just had to listen, and their supervisors told them what to do, basically. Very much that cog in a machine kind of feeling. And Frederick Taylor, he's one of the guys that kicked off this whole thing, particularly with scientific management and his stopwatches and timing things and trying to figure out the best way to get work done. Systematic soldiering was a concept that we talked about in class, about that idea that workers were trying to slow things down so that they weren't then required to do even more work. So definitely look back at that term. That'll find its way in there. Henry Fayol, the 5 functions of management, connects right back to our functions of management from previous, but take a look at those. And then the big ideas of bureaucracy is it really wasn't designed to be a bad thing. It's just kind of gone that way over time. But the hierarchy and the structures and the levels of management kind of all came and originated from that. Behavioral theory, we have the Hawthorne effect from Elton Mayo, and understanding that that their work environment is important, but it's even more important for managers to pay attention to their employees and really take an interest in what they're doing. And that was a big shift. So both the presentations on that really did a good job. So look back at their information. And then theory X and theory Y. Remember with X, it's like, oh, we don't like to work. And theory Y is the assumption that employees do like to work, and just the differences in how that then changes the way that we manage. Systems and contingency both will be on there as well, thinking of the organization as a system, and then also contingency theory. It depends. And I think the big thing is, like, if we look at behavioral theory and then also this classical scientific management realm, they were very prescriptive. They would say, do this in all situations. It was a one-size-fits-all approach. Both of them were. They had different kind of focus because one was more about the task and one was more about people, but it was still a one-size-fits-all. It really wasn't until we get to contingency theory where we said, hey, maybe there's some different ways that we should think about this. Like maybe it depends on the person and the situation. And so that's where that comes in. So look back at those. Chapter 2 really is going to be mostly about culture and ethics. That's really all we got to. So chapter 2, understanding the difference, like what is the internal environments, the things we can impact. And then with the culture piece, knowing what culture is, the components of it, so the stories and the heroes, ceremonies, symbols, making sure you know what those are and examples of those would be great. And then with the 3 levels of culture, I did also review this briefly on that other video, so you could look back at that, but you're going to be asked to identify those 3 layers and be able to give an example. So make sure you know how to connect the dots between something you observe in the culture, the value it's associated with, and then the why behind it. Why do they value that? Why is that important to them? And that if you see that connection, then hopefully you're looking at a strong culture. Under ethics, yes, don't know the definition of ethics, so memorize that. And also what a whistleblower is, someone that is speaking out against something, and there's some protections in place for them. Definitely, like I said in class, know those decision-making models because you'll be given a scenario to use one of those to describe and then apply it and give me a decision. So from a short answer perspective, that would be great from there. And then there'll be some, more objective questions on those justifications of unethical behavior that we discussed at the end of class. We did not get to chapter 3, so that's why they're all crossed out. But when we get down to Keller and faith and work, I have some questions. So I have at least 2 questions for each chapter. I will pick a selection of these, probably 3, to be on the exam. So the best way to go about preparing would be to go through and answer these questions. All right, so go back to your notes, back to your reading, your journal entries, and answer the questions or define, for example, this is more of a definition, the Ministry of Competence, doing your best work no matter what. Go back and answer those, and that will prepare you for those 3 short answer questions on the exam. I will also be asking you what these 5 accents or themes, I guess is a better word, of faith and work. Maybe I can change that. 5 themes. So if we think about those, we have calling, stewardship. We have evangelism. And we've only gotten to calling so far. We have calling, stewardship, evangelism, ethics, and social justice. And which one am I missing? I'm missing the last one. Anyway, I'll come back to it. I'll add it in. Because I'll add it in before I post this because I really can't. I'm blanking on it at the moment. So I would like you to know what those 5 themes are that we're touching on throughout the semester. Oh, generosity. Not just generosity, radical generosity. Okay, so those are our 5 topics, and so make sure you know those. I'll ask that as a short answer question as well. All right, so that's my review. Definitely go out and take a look at this. This will be posted, the revised one, on Moodle as well as this video. I'll see you guys Tuesday.